Bandidos, I have another great countdown game mode build for you. It is strong and makes so much sense for this new game mode, you're gonna love it. And I'm gonna show you how to make it right now. Let's go. The Backfire SMG hasn't had much time in the spotlight, but it's about to make its way out of your stash and onto your countdown build because it brings an additional 200% crit hit damage to the build, which is all you could possibly want. And there is no better tanky DPS setup in the game than the new Heartbreaker gear set. That's right, we're combining the Backfire SMG with the Heartbreaker gear set. This is the Backfire exotic SMG. The talent is payment in kind, so dealing damage to enemies adds a stack of 1% critical hit damage up to 200 stacks. These stacks last 10 seconds, so you have to hit a target at least once with one bullet to maintain all 200 stacks, which isn't super hard actually. Okay, so the downside of this weapon is on reload it applies a 10-second bleed to yourself, which basically can kill you when you're at full stacks. You really want to avoid the bleed animation. You need 95% bleed resistance to be immune to bleed. Okay, the other weapon which is really important is the rock and roll shotgun, or any ACS will do fine. Notice I have rate of fire as an attribute. Helps you get your stacks even faster. This comes with perfectly extra, which is 50% more in the mag. Okay, looking at the chest piece, we're running a 4-piece Heartbreaker, which is giving us assault rifle damage and LMG damage that we're not using, and I'm not worried about that. Either should you be. 200% crit hit damage means more than 15% weapon damage. We got 15% weapon handling, which helps us with faster reloads and of course landing those headshots that we need to get the pulse, because when we get the pulse, then we get 1% stack of bonus armor and 1% damage to those pulsed enemies, stacking up to 50 times, but we're running the chest piece, which is boosting that all the way up to 100. Notice I have hazard protection and bleed resistance. Okay, the mask basically looks the same, more hazard protection and bleed resistance. The knees are identical, as well as, you guessed it, the holster. Now I have a weapon core here. I have 2 red weapon cores, and I felt like that was a nice balance. I'm running Y'all gloves, which is giving me 10% hazard protection. I have crit chance and more hazard protection rolled on for the attributes, as well as armor. But listen, if you don't have Y'all gloves, just put Cheska here instead. Make sure it has crit chance and hazard protection. The backpack is important. It's got max crits, and I have a 10% bleed resistance mod. Really key. Versatile. Amplifies total weapon damage for 10 seconds when swapping between your primary and secondary weapon. That's insane. It's gonna make even your rock and roll deadly as ever. It's 35% amp damage to enemies within 15 meters for shotguns and SMGs, so both weapons are going to get that, and enemies are playing in that range almost all the time. I just really like this synergy because we're swapping to the shotgun anyways. We might as well get that big boost of damage because the rock and roll shotgun doesn't have a damage talent, and the Backfire lacks upfront burst damage, so having that is really nice. But you don't have to. If you prefer to have the bonus armor, then just go ahead and run the Heartbreaker gear set here for that 200% bonus armor, and then run your Cheska on your mask. So we have 58% crit hit chance, 62% crit hit damage, plus 200% more crit hit damage from the Backfire, 70% headshot damage, 1.5 million armor, and the fun ones, 70% hazard protection, 99.6 bleed resistance, which is fully immune to bleed. So when you switch back to the SMG, you're gonna have that fresh stack of Versatile. It will last, again, 10 seconds, which means it'll be there between 0 and 90 crit hit damage stacks on your Backfire on average. Let me tell you how we got here. I have been playing a lot of Countdown lately, almost purely. I love the fast pace, the quantity of loot, named items, and the fights. I've learned that Countdown deserves its own builds. Builds that work in the open world may not be great in Countdown, and vice versa. That's because the game mode is very fast paced, and you spend almost all of your time out of cover, which opens you up to the frequent possibility of getting swarmed by enemies. I've run pure DPS builds in there. They work, but for me, it's not that fun to do that. You've probably noticed the NPCs getting right in your face a lot to trade blows with you. This had me thinking SMGs are ideal for this game mode because of those close quarter combats. Also because SMGs bring a lot of crit chance with them already, and the Heartbreaker gear set set struggles to host crits because there isn't many slots for them. Lastly, most SMGs bring great RPMs to the table, which means more burst damage. This fills in a gap the Heartbreaker set doesn't deliver. Look, there's more to this build than just equipping the Backfire SMG as your weapon. Also, this is a no bleed Backfire build, and that's the way you want to go. Let me tell you why. Have you noticed all the hazards in Countdown yet? Most bosses have special ammo or hazard weapons. There is a lot of special ammo in general, also lots of fire and shock, even steam that kills. This build is 80% immune to all of that and 100% immune to the bleed. And check this, in total, you have 262% crit hit damage on top of the 100% damage Heartbreaker's talent is giving you. You're probably already using the ACS or rock and roll shotgun to build stacks for your Heartbreaker gear set, right? This build does that too, but it makes even better use out of this idea. And that's because I am rolling with Versatile for 35% amp damage on top of all the other damage when you swap weapons. So now, unlike before, this set has massive burst damage, and I mean massive, and Versatile synergizes with the shotgun SMG swap and gives a Heartbreaker set the much needed and highly valuable burst damage it lacks. If you know the Backfire well, or have used it at all, then you probably know it lacks burst damage on its own. The 200% crit damage is amazingly strong, but you have to stack to get it, so you can feel weak at the early stages as you're working towards that. You absolutely do not feel weak with the setup if you use it correctly, which isn't hard. Start any engagement with the Backfire in your hand. When you're just about to kick off the fight, swap to your shotgun. You now have 35% amplified damage on your shotgun. You're gonna mow through everything. This is also going to fully stack your Heartbreaker gear set. Now you swap to your Backfire SMG. Your Backfire now has a fresh 35% amp damage. That's on top of the fresh 100% weapon damage stacks from Heartbreaker. So you will absolutely not feel weak when you start to add your 200% crit stacks. Remember, you already have 60% or so crit hit damage on your build. The Backfire has 850 RPMs, so you will maintain Heartbreaker easily. From here, stick with your Backfire and the 200% crit hit damage until the end of the engagement. The Versatile talent will fade eventually, but you won't need it because you now have the 200% crit damage. If you know the Backfire, then you also know that it can also be frustrating to lose your stacks. We're talking about those 200% crit hit damage stacks. In perfect synergy with the Heartbreaker, as long as you're hitting something, you are maintaining your stacks with the Backfire. The difference is, if you don't hit anything for 10 seconds, you lose all 200 stacks. For most Backfire builds, that sucks because you're back to feeling weak without burst damage. Not with this setup. With this one, you still have Heartbreaker stacks. Even better, you now have a hall pass to swap to your shotgun again and boost your gear stacks with 35% amp damage. Then swap again to your Backfire to refresh the amp again and start adding crit stacks on top of that. Because it's a big map, this is a common occurrence, but now you are totally okay with it because you have a fantastic amp damage resource to tap into. Remember, those stacks are happening at 850 RPMs too, and you have the added handling from the gear set for faster reloads. As tanky and protected as it is, with 100% bleed resist, 80% Hazpro on 1.5 million armor and bonus armor, this build is still overkill for most skirmishes you get into. The NPCs are very tanky in here, but they're not tanky enough to take your max crits. However, where the max damage shines is against the hunters, any boss, big swarms, and of course, the extraction time. You will find you are able to quickly get and maintain the full 200% crit damage when it matters. Whether you have Versatile active or 200% crit damage fully stacked, the time to kill is outrageous, and that's all that matters when it comes to having great fun and great survivability. Bandidos, this guide to the expertise system is going to save you time and resources as you level up your game.